Rob here, and I've got Matt on the line with me. Matt had an idea to do kind of a co-review of different distros, and we had discussed it, and we talked about kind of some of those unknown distros that are out there that pop up from time to time, and so we agreed to take a look at a distro called Gmac. So, Matt, if you would introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me on, Rob. I appreciate it. So I am a long-time on and off Linux user. I go back to the days of Mandrake, so like 99 and Wintel modems. I use everything. I'm a technology enthusiast, so take that for what it is. But I contacted Rob about looking at some of these lesser known distros, and Gmac came up because it's a continuation of ParaOS, and ParaOS always interested me, so that's kind of the story of me and how this came together.
Well, and we thought it would be kind of fun because Matt and I are from two different. Obviously, Matt is the younger, hipper generation, and I'm the boring guy. So we figured we could share two different viewpoints from two different generations. So, Matt, go ahead, and if you want to jump on in and just kind of give your take, then we may or may not, we'll see how it works out, have a short little video pointing out some of the things that Matt found. Matt, you actually ran it for several more days than I did. I had it installed on a test machine and really didn't put it through real-world paces like I sometimes can do. I think you put it through more of a real-world pace, didn't you?
Yeah, so for people who want to know what I actually installed it on, this is HP ProBook 5310. So it's aging hardware at this point, but more than meets the requirements for any Linux distro currently. The things that I found, I'm going to caveat with the good first. If you want a Mac-like experience but don't want a Mac, and you want it on Linux, this is the only way that's going to happen. This is the best way to go Hackintosh without going Hackintosh, essentially. So that's the pro. Now, there are a lot of cons. Let's just say the first one, the theming. Theming is very nice. So, the first thing you look at is the theme, and it's like the Firefox logo is the Firefox logo. It looks very Safari logo. It's just very well themed if you're coming from a Mac. So things like the icon sets and all that stuff look very familiar. And if you can't get lost if you're used to the default Mac OS 10 or Mac OS applications. That's about as much good as I've been able to find.
Well, you and I may have had a more similar experience than I expected.
The first thing you notice, once you scratch past the surface, it's really got some issues. Now, I take this as I am no means a deep Linux power user, but I do use the terminal from time to time, or I prefer more powerful GUI applications. So, for those that don't know, Gmac is based off Ubuntu 14.04, whatever dot version number it is. That I have 2 or 3 now. I know the last reiteration of this OS was done back in July, so it's getting a little long for updates. The UI inconsistencies. If you look at the top left, where Ubuntu decides to hard code all the lovely window controls, you have minimize, close, and maximize. Mac colors, all that stuff. Looks great. You open the file manager, however, which looks great, again, and all the controls are on the right-hand side. So it's like...
Yep. I noticed that exact thing right away because I had the same initial thought. I was like, hey, wow. As a matter of fact, my daughter happened to be walking by as I had just booted into Gmac for the first time. And she just casually says, wow, Dad, are you running a Mac? And because they did a phenomenal job with that initial appearance of the, the Mac bar at the bottom or whatever they call it. I'm not a Mac person, but and so initially I was like, oh wow, this is kind of cool, because very high quality icons. But immediately I noticed exactly what you just said, Matt. I clicked into the file manager, and the theming immediately was lost. It just looked like any other file manager that you would see in Linux, with the exception of some high quality icons that were added in, kind of a bluish tint. And I think we'll either show the video, or if you want to screen share later, however this works out. So how many days, Matt, you ran it for several days, right?
I ran it for about a week.
Okay. None of us ran this in VM. We ran this on hardware installed, correct?
As I said, they saw the hardware I ran it on. I ran it on that for a week. I used it as a production machine, quote unquote. So that means I've done video calls. I've done all that stuff. So yeah, I know you are kind of fall into the same boat I do. If I do a distro review, it's going to be on hardware, not VM.
Yeah, I prefer that as well. And from a standpoint of speed and everything, I was fine with the speed, and it felt stable. And maybe that's a funny way to say it, but you kind of get a feel for a distro as you start to dig in, and I don't know if that's a good term or not, but it felt stable. It felt like, hey, this is something that would run just fine. I installed a few applications and did a few things that just seemed like, hey, they got the bugs worked out at least. Was that your experience?
As far as an overall, as far as the stability, it was very stable. That could be chalked up to the 3 years of support that the current, or 2 years, the current LTS has had for bug fixes and stuff. But the snappiness, like the actual using of the OS was fast, it was snappy, it was fluid. I didn't have any issues as far as responsiveness or stability.
So I want to ask you if you had the same reaction I had. And, I'm typically a half glass full kind of guy on my reviews. I have to remind myself that, hey, you need to share the bad with people when you're doing a video. So I have to kind of push myself to make sure that I point those things out. And so one of the other things that stood out to me is when you launch into the application launcher, there is a tremendous amount of spacing between the rows of icons. And you have then 3 tabs at the bottom. And I'm looking at that, and I think, let's see, what it looks like to me is it's based off of GNOME. Is that correct?
GNOME 3, I don't know the actual version number. I just know it's GNOME 3 is what it's based around.
It may be the spacing. That's just the spacing that was allowed with, that just may be the standard setup, or when they themed it, it changed it. But it was so, the icons were so widely spaced that if they had the ability to move those in closer, they could have done away with having 3 tabs at the bottom. It looked out of place to me. So that was another thing that kind of stood out. And then I ran into an issue in the video. I think what we'll do, Matt, is we'll take that video. I actually shot this one with my phone, which I hate to do. And the reason I did was because when I installed the screen recording software, it wasn't simple screen recorder where you had keyboard commands, but I went to minimize the screen recording software, and typically that's going to show up either in the plank at the bottom or at the task manager at the top, or worst case scenario in one of your virtual desktops, right? So, but not the case here. So it was totally lost. Once I started the screen recording and minimized it, it was gone. So instead of messing around with it, I couldn't turn it off, actually. I went back in to launch it, and then I had 2 copies running. So, and I didn't want to take the time to install Simple Screen Recorder and go through the whole process for that very short video that I wanted just to point some things out. So anyway, just as you said, once I started digging into it, I found myself saying, why would I want to use this?
I'm going to come from this as more of the Linux power user, and I hate that term for God, the life of me. This is a very set it and forget it distro. Like if you are happy running default applications and not going beyond maybe what's in what they call the Gmac store, which is still based on the very badly optimized Ubuntu Software Center from 1404. Something that really irked me the most. I do not I use GDebi and I download debs. I use them as an exe or any other type of, Windows mentality or DMG or any of that type of stuff. GDebi is installed by default. That's great. However, why do I have to go into the Software Center and download the GTK icon and front end essentially when it's already installed? Because when you hit Meta or Windows or Super, whatever key you want to call it, and you go to search for GDebi by default, it does not show up.
Right.
I ran into this with Synaptic because there are times where I add PPAs and all this other stuff and packages break. I don't feel like dealing with it from the command line. I prefer using the GUI tools if they are available. Synaptic is the same way. It's installed by default. Why do I have to go to the terminal and type in sudo synaptic and actually get it to run when it should be showing up in the search for all your applications? Because it's an application.
Yep.
I get it if they're trying to limit user choice, the user confusion. I can understand it from that point, but it really irks me when it's crap like that is just as a Linux user, because it's you're making it harder for me to work in this system.
That's right. Well, I went in and I thought, well, hey, I'm going to install the tweak tool, tweak tool, and just go in and kind of see what I might adjust out and see I wanted to go in and kind of see what they've done there, what they have in place. So, if you go into the search for the applications, it showed that it was already installed, but I didn't see it anywhere. So I went into Synaptic and thought, okay, well, maybe there's just something going on there that is given a false read or something on the applications that are installed, whatever. So I went into Synaptic and did a search for, tweak tool, and it showed that it was installed, but I could not find it anywhere in the application list. So I don't know what's going on there. It's that and several other examples that you've explained that, I don't have a rating system, but if I had a rating system of 1 to 5 and 5 being the best and 1 being the worst, just my take, I would be pressed. I'm going to say about a 2.7 to a 3, somewhere around in there. So I don't know if you want to base anything out of that scale or not, Matt.
I'm probably better off going on a 1 to 10 scale because I can't do it in 20-point intervals. For me, this probably falls somewhere like a 4 or 5 if I'm going on a 10 scale. It's just below average. Now this could be the aging Linux user in me. There are just some things I don't want to deal with. I can work around certain systems, certain limitations like elementary or deepen would do. I can work around those.
Right.
This one seems much more of why would I? And the headaches that it causes are ones that it shouldn't cause.
Right.
So to me, that's kind of an annoyance. It has applications that are there but are not there. It feels very incoherent to me, I guess. Once you really scratch below the surface on I don't want to say technical level, but on a more advanced user level. Again, I will state that this for me is a set it and forget it distro for people who like defaults but want that Mac type vibe for it. Personally, though, if you're really going for that, I'd recommend something like Deepin Linux, or I would recommend something like Elementary. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, in fact, I felt the same way. I was like, once I got in and started using this, I'm thinking to myself, I just can't find a reason or see a reason that would cause me to want to even remotely consider using this as a daily driver. And I like to go in and tweak things and customize things myself anyway, which would defeat the purpose then of all of the work that went into that distribution to make it look like a Mac. Because, more than likely I'm going to go in and change things there that would pull away from that theme even further anyway. So, I kind of boiled it down to, hey, if you love the look of a Mac and you're a Mac fan, but you wanted to try Linux, then give this distro a try. If you're just going to play around with it and you love the look of Mac and want that look out of the box at a level, because you're only going to get so deep before that look just kind of goes away, right? Within the file manager and other areas. So, otherwise, I would just say if you come across this, don't be tempted by the beautiful screenshots as far as the looks are concerned. It's surface level to me.
And that, I think, is basically the conclusion we've kind of both come to. It's surface level, like very, very great looking distro.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Higher level view, not so much.
I think we'll probably beat this one up enough. So we'll go ahead and I guess wrap it up. And I think if we look at other distros in the future and kind of do this in the future, we may have more different perspectives. But this was one that certainly I think we both came to the same conclusion on. And so we'll wrap it up. No disrespect to the people who are working on the distribution, but at some point you have to get beyond just the surface looks. And unfortunately, I think we both reached that area where we were like, okay, yeah. So anyway, we'll go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll just have a short video that kind of points out what Matt pointed out about the distribution, and some of my input will be in that video so that you can see what we're talking about. So Matt, thanks a lot, and look forward to some other unknown distribution that we can take a look at, and we'll go from there.
All right, thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
All right, check you later.
To give you an idea of what we were talking about. This is kind of a different approach, I guess, at reviewing a distro, but you can see here that it's very Mac-esque, Mac-like. The panel here at the bottom, it's beautiful. In fact, my daughter, I think I said in the video, my daughter walked by and said, "Hey, Dad, are you running a Mac?" So from that part, nice selection of wallpapers, things like that. But there are some UI inconsistencies and some things that, as we discussed, that you get into and you start to see, and it kind of starts to fall apart a little bit. So I think, updated and with more attention to detail, this could be a very interesting distro, especially if you, prefer the look of a Mac. So for example, here we've got English on the keyboard and everything chosen, but it's here I believe that is Spanish. So went in and, as Matt had tried to do as well, changed that over to English, and it would not take. So there's a little inconsistency there. And while for the most part you see Mac controls, so we'll launch into Firefox here. So you've got your red, yellow, and green here controls. So that looks like a Mac. But then if you go into your file manager, you'll see that that goes away. There's some other kind of odd things. So if you launch into applications, you see applications listed again as an icon there. I think the spacing is too broad here as well. It takes up, there's unnecessary spacing in my opinion. So I think you could condense that or come up with a better application layout. And also notice that the applications are not in any type of alphabetical order or anything like that. So I found that kind of odd. It showed that Tweak Tool was installed. However, I could not find Tweak Tool with search or anything like that. So just wanted to give you a very quick illustration of what it looks like so that you could see that, yes, it is attractive. But again, unfortunately, once you get past that, the surface level stuff, it starts to break down a little bit. So I think if they could work on it, update it, and it could be a resource thing. Everyone's limited on time and that kind of thing. So again, not knocking anyone who is working on this. It's just one of those distributions that myself I would say needs some additional work, and otherwise it could be something to look at in the future. All right. Thanks for watching, and we will check you later.